All right, we are good to go. So hello, beady friends. Welcome to another wonderful Michael's online classroom class. So today we are jewelry making 108, the coiled wire bead bracelet. So we are at 108 right now. It seems like we are beyond 108 for now, but that gives us a clue that there are classes that came before. We have done crimping, we have done intro to wire work, we have done loom classes, we have used the Beadalon knotter tool. So go ahead and go back after this class is done, of course, back in the archives and check out some of the other classes that I have taught, and also the amazing library of classes that Michael's is compiling right now, from everything from knitting to paper crafts to planners. Oh my gosh, so much great content out there. So welcome everybody. It looks like we've got a great crowd today. And let me show you at the very get-go what we are going to be making today. So we're going to keep the forward-facing camera for just a couple more minutes while people are bopping on, but we are going to be making this really fun, right, coiled wire bracelet. And you got to trust me on this one. You guys are going to be amazed at how easy this is to do. So it looks like we've got all kinds of friends here from all over, and everyone is excited. Now, today's class, I'm pretty sure, especially if you've been hanging out with me over the summer and participated in some of my other classes, if you have all the tools, you might be able to actually make along with me today, which would be fantastic. But if there's something I start getting ahead and you're like, wait a second, there was a wrapped loop back there, not to worry. If you wait patiently or impatiently, as the case may be, in about 24 to 36, 48 hours, Michael's will post the class on the community classroom site. So if you get a little behind, if there's something that I said really fast and you didn't quite get it, rest assured that you can go back and watch this class over and over and over again. So without any further ado, I think it is time to get started. So if you want to go ahead and take that overhead camera, I can make sure that I have a nice shot here and everyone can see what they need to use for our class today. So we are going to be spotlighting a new tool. We have not used this one before in a class that I have taught. And it is the Artistic Wire Coiling Gizmo Deluxe Econo Winder. Okay, it's a lot of words for this very fun, simple little tool. So in the box, you will get this U-clamp and a C bracket. So this one's a C, this one's a U. That's how we know the difference. And then you also get 5 rods. So this is one of the rods. Let me just back us up just a skosh here so you can see the whole rod. And let me just pull out from the box so everyone can see the other ones. So you get rods from very, very skinny, and apparently very crinkly, but very, very skinny, like this one here, to very, very thick, like this one here. And they also make a lot of noise when you bop them around on your workspace. So today what we are going to be using is the second to the thickest rod, okay? So just as a point of interest, and of course, the smaller the rod, the tighter the coils, and the larger the rod, the thicker the coils, right? Makes sense. Okay, so let's see. I apologize. This is actually the middle size rod. There are 5 rods total, and this is the one that's the middle size. And you can go 1 or 2 either way. Does not matter. So let's go ahead. Actually, before we get this set up, let's talk about our other materials that we're going to be using today. So here I have some 18 gauge artistic wire in a dispenser pack, and this is going to serve as the base of our thing. And forgive me, friends, for a moment, because my Oh, goodness gracious. My camera went out for a second. I apologize for that. Okay, so back to wire. So 18 gauge wire and then some 22 gauge wire. And this is artistic wire. It is a dead soft copper core plated wire that has a tarnish resistant coating on top of it. So this is great stuff, and it's dead soft, which is a perfect wire to learn how to do this project. Okay, once you get a little bit more comfortable with the machine, with the tool, with the technique, you might want to jump up to a German style wire, which is more of a half hard wire. We'll talk a little bit more about wire as we're going along. So those are the 2 gauges of wire that you need for this project. So of course we need some beads, right? The beads are always my most fun part. And these are, let's see, these are, I'm both trying to look at the tag and also at the screen at the same time. These are pink Czech 6mm faceted glass beads. And you can use really any beads for this. You can use these 6mm here. And I have another example that I actually made with a mix of seed beads. These are, I think these are a size 2 size seed bead. So you can, I mean, really, you can use any beads. You can do a bead soup. You can do all different sizes, totally up to you. So those are the beads. And then the tools, of course, that we need to make our project. So the first one we're going to use is one of, I think this might be one of my favorite tools of all time, is the nylon jaw pliers. And I started saying wire straighteners, but it's a nylon jaw pliers that you can use for a lot of different things. But today we're going to be using this to straighten our wire if we need to. And I saw a question, if you have German style wire or a different style of wire at home, this project you can likely do with wire. It would just have to be, you couldn't do it with like a stainless steel wire or a memory wire or a beading wire, but any wire wrapping wire is great. So here we have some cutters. Almost all beading projects need cutters, right? We're going to need a round nose plier. And we are also going to need a flat nose or a chain nose plier. And you can see these are all the sparkle handled pliers that Michael's carries from Beadalon. These are, of all of the lines of tools, these are my favorite. I love the sparkle handled pliers that Michael's carries. They're just, they feel great in my hand, and you'll see as I'm working with them, how well they lend themselves to what I need to do today. Okay, so I think we are ready to get started. So here, I'm actually working on just a piece of wood. It's just a piece of wood that I'm actually going to be using for another project, because my desk, I can just move this back just a little bit. My desk is actually glass. And so I don't want to attach my C-clamp to the glass. It would probably be okay, but I don't want to scratch it. I don't want to take any chances, and especially with the camera angles that I'm going to need to come and get so that you all can see what I'm doing. I decided that just a piece of wood would be fine. And this isn't heavy. I think this is a 10 by 10 piece of wood. Like I said, I'm using it for a different project. But today what I want to do is just move my camera just a little bit. You can see my lap. And usually my golden retriever is underneath the desk. You would have been able to see his little snout. He'll probably be there later. He's behind me now. So C-clamp, this unscrews lefty-loosey and tightens up. So all I need to do, just making sure that, let's see, let's move this down and down. All you need to do is put it onto the surface that you are going to clamp it down to and tighten it up. Excuse me. All right, so literally it's that easy. My tool is set up, okay? So I played around with this angle so much before we went live, and I have a feeling that I'm going to play around with it a little bit more as well. Okay, so now I'm going to take, again, that middle size of the 5 rods is just what I chose for this project. You could use a bigger or a smaller one, but for practicing and for making our project today, we are going to use this one. And you can see I left a little wire here from a previous project just to remind myself that this was the one that I wanted to use. Well, tricks of the trade, right? To see how the instructors can remember how to do everything. So now you can see I just very simply, right, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different holes here that correspond to the different sizes of rods. And I'm going to put this in. Let's see, will it fit in this one? It will fit in this one. I'm just going to slide it in, right? It's a very, very easy tool to make. And this is just one of the many different things that you can use or that you can make using the coiling gizmo. Okay, so now I'm going to take my 22 gauge wire. And for those of you who might not know, little pro tip here. We always like to give extra special pieces of information when we're doing live classes. This, when you open it up, and I don't always do the neatest job of opening up my packages, but you can thread the tail of that wire through this little hole here in the back. And so your wire stays nice and neat. You always know what gauge it is. It does say it here too, so you're not going to not know what gauge it is. But I like keeping them in here because then you can just kind of use it as a pack, a dispenser pack, if you will, to keep your wire nice and neat, right? So it doesn't get kinked, it doesn't get messed up. But here is where these wonderful nylon jaw pliers come in. So I had a little bit of wire here that came out. I'm just going to kind of pull up in front of the camera. I had a little that was already out, so I need to straighten that, right? So I'm going to take my nylon jaw pliers and I'm just holding them and gently pulling them against the wire. So all those little kinks that were just right there, all gone. It's one of those things that still gives me a little giggle inside that it's just one of those things, it works and it doesn't mar the wire because the jaws are nylon. If you used just like a regular chain nose plier or flat nose plier, could strip the coating off. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this around, and I'm just kind of messily linking that, or attaching it is a better word than link, attaching it to the side right here. So I just wrapped it around. This piece of wire is nothing to me now. All it is doing is functionally holding my wire here, because what's going to happen next is magic. Might just be magic. So now what I'm going to do is, I think that's a pretty good angle. Let me just move it just a little bit like that. Oh yeah, now we're talking. Okay, so now the motion becomes a coiling motion, right? So it's called the coiling gizmo. This is the Deluxe Econo winder. So it is the Deluxe, and all I'm doing is I'm holding the wire here with my left hand, my non-dominant hand, and I am coiling or cranking the rod around in my right hand. And you can see how quickly that wire is going to coil up on the rod. Okay, I'm just going to come in, just see if we can get just even closer still, so you can really see what's going on here. So as I am coiling up, I'm going to look back through. I see one very good question, which is, what's the best way to protect the nylon pliers from getting scratched and consequently scratching the wire? Well, so the nylon pliers, the more you use them, the more they will kind of get little kinks and grooves in them, but those kinks and grooves should not scratch your wire. There are replacement tips that can be found for the nylon jaw pliers. And you can also, yeah, if you're careful with them, they should last you a very, very long time. I still have my very first pair of ever nylon jaw pliers, and I still use them for for straightening wire. So you can see the really all I'm doing. I'm just going to move back over here. All I'm doing is I'm just cranking this rod around and the wire is forming a coil. So this is the part of the project that will take the longest. So after you have, after you've secured it to the end, right here, what I like to do is I like to coil up until there's no more room on the rod. I like a nice long coil. And the thing you can do with these coils once you've made them, you can use them for all different kinds of things as well. So, and we can talk a little bit more again about that also. So Yvette, while I am doing all of these coils, are there any other questions that I missed in these wonderful comments that are going by so quickly? I'm not going to click back up into them, but if there's anything that I can speak to while I'm doing this coiling, can you let me know?
No, everything's good so far.
Oh, awesome. Fantastic. So let me, since I came in so close, I'm just going to back up just a little bit, kind of give everybody the bigger picture, maybe not of the disaster that is, that is my desk right now. We have a lot of projects going on here at the Beadalon studios.
Somebody did ask, how can you make a coil longer than the rod?
You would make 2 coils and then use them together in your project. For this particular technique, I don't think that there is an easy way to do that. I think that you would need to do more than one coil and then just use them next to each other. And a very good tip just came through that Reem uses a Sharpie to mark on the rod the length that she needs. So if she knows that she needs a shorter length for something, that's a really, really very good tip to use a Sharpie to show where you want to stop. Now you can see here that whole length of the rod had been free from a coil, and now it kind of moved back and moved back and moved back. And what's happening is as I'm coiling, I'm doing it right up against that U-clamp here. And so what's happening is that coil is perfect because it's using this spot right here to get in line with the rest of the coils. Now, if you make a mistake, if you coil it back on itself because you're doing, maybe you weren't paying as close attention as you know, we're all distracted these days. You can generally, because this is wired, you can generally fix a mistake, but we'll develop good habits so that hopefully we won't have any mistakes. And now here I am right at the very end. So I am done with my coil and I'm ready to move on to the next step. So I'm just going to move this back just a little bit so that I can have a little room to work with my hands. And I'm going to grab my glasses very quickly. I have quickly found that glasses are the most important tool in my toolbox. So now what I can do is I can actually just very gently pull this out. Doesn't really have to be that gently, but I like to do things gently. And I'm going to use my cutters and I'm just going to snip off the end right there. And again, if you are keeping up with me, fantastic. But if I'm going a little bit too fast, just know that come tomorrow or the next day on the Michael's Community Classroom site, you will be able to watch this video over and over again. And now I'm cutting with the flush side of my cutters, and I'm just snipping that coil free. So it's one of those things that when you break it down for class, it can sometimes be a little, look more complicated than it actually is, but I'm just gently nudging that coil off of the rod. And now I'm ready for the next step. Whew. All right, so for our next step, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to slide this coil back onto my 22 gauge wire. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm making this coil into another coil. Whew. All right, so I'm going to pull out a little bit more of this wire, and I'm going to use those nylon jaw pliers again to straighten my wire. I just like it to be as straight as it possibly can be when it comes off of the spool. It's just one of those things. It's kind of a habit that I got into a long time ago. Every time I pull off a length of wire, I straighten it, and that straightening of the wire also actually acts to work harden the wire a little bit. So what that means is it makes that wire just a little bit harder and a little bit easier to work with. So all I'm doing is I'm taking that 22 gauge wire and I'm just threading it through that coil and out the other end, right? Easy enough. And I'm not cutting any wire. I'm working directly from the spool for this entire project. So I'm not, there's no waste, and I'm not having to worry about any of the measurements. So this looks thicker than the one that I was just using. Yeah, okay. So now what I'm gonna do is that same wire, or that same rod, I should say, that I was just using, I'm going to put it back into the tool, and I'm going to do that so you can actually see as well what I'm doing. So let's do that one more time. I'm going to put that back into the tool, and we are going to start that process all over again, right? So we are now we created our loop, but now what we have to do is create our bead. And you can see this one's a little bit wonky, but just to see kind of where we are going. So we're going to start that same process that we did in the very beginning over again. So I'm going to secure the end just by wrapping it around once or twice so it's not going anywhere. And I'm going to take my wire down, and I'm just resting the spool of wire in my lap right now. And once again, I'm going to come up close, because coming up close here is what makes that coil nice and compact. If you're out here trying to coil around, it will work, but really the benefit of using this kind of a tool is you're working right up against it, and so you get a really nice tight coil. And I put my wire on the opposite side, so I don't want that to be the case. I want to bring it over here, so I'm coiling the same way as before. Totally doesn't matter. It's just a little thing for me. And I wrapped just once around, and it has stayed. If you need to wrap around twice because your wrap is loose, that's okay too. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to coil 5 times. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Why 5? Because that's how I like to do it. If you want to do 6, you can do 6. If you want to do 10, you can do 10. That is, I'm giving that an up to you, okay? But now what you want to do is pull up that coil. So I have my wire down here. I'm just trying to keep this as close as I can because I want everyone to see what's going on. But this is an important part. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that coil with my thumb and my forefinger right down here. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply gentle pressure so that the coil starts wrapping around that rod, right? Wow. Okay, so we're going to continue our coil. And this I like to do nice and slow so that my coil starts wrapping around and wrapping around next to it. And do you see how those coils are kind of opening up a little bit to be really, really pretty? So now we're going to just continue that cranking around until all of that coil is used up. This part takes considerable less amount of time than making that one coil in the very, very beginning. But I don't know, I find this part to be so, it just makes me so happy when those coils open up like that. Okay, oh, so pretty. So now I've reached the end of my coil, and just like I did those 5 in the beginning, I'm also going to do 5 in the end. If you did 6 in the beginning, do 6 in the end. If you're feeling a little frisky, a little off symmetry, then do however many you want, right? This is your project. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think I actually even made 6. But that is totally fine. That's what happens when you're talking instead of counting. But no worries. The only person that's going to know that there's a little extra coil there is me. All right. So now we are done with the coiling gizmo. So I am going to move this out of the way and come on up and overhead so that we can see what's going on now. Okay. So I apologize for moving the camera around so much, but I feel like it's always better to really be able to show things from a couple of different angles, but most importantly, really, really close up. So when I find that I need to bring something really tight up close to the camera, I'll scooch it around a little bit. I hope it's not making anybody too dizzy. So once again, I'm just going to use the flush side of my flush cutter and snip that wire from the spool. And now we're done with 22 gauge. So I can put that to the side, and I'm going to come over to the other side here and do that same thing. I'm going to snip the wire using the flush side of my cutters and just gently remove it from the rod. And I want to make sure that I don't, if I don't want to, I don't pull it so tight as to distort this or get it out of shape. And you can see I was kind of giving it a little back and forth movement here just to slide it out. Because sometimes if you've done a really good job with the wrapping, it can get a little tight there on the rod. So now, one of the things that I mentioned is when you're working with wire, you can always, as my friend Kate likes to say, show that wire who's boss. So this wire, that coil needed to get a little bit more scrunched. And this end right here just needs a little bit more of a trim and a tuck. So I'm going to trim that off. And I actually don't think I need to tuck it because I trimmed it really well. So you can kind of spread this out a little bit if you'd like. I like kind of moving the coils apart just a little bit. I think it gives it a little bit more interest. And of course, I'm showing this project in silver, but you could have used any color combination for the different coils, and you could even use a different color combination for the middle part. And in fact, just thinking, looking behind me, no, we're gonna stick with silver. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit for just 1 minute about gauges of wire. So I am now switching to 18 gauge. So you could see before I was using 22 gauge, and now I'm using 18 gauge. Now the difference is 22 gauge is thinner than 18 gauge. So if you think about your wire gauges, let's use a range from, let's say, 10 to 34. So 10 will be the thickest wire. So the smaller the number, the thicker the wire. And if you look up, if you go up to, say, 32, 36 gauge wire is very, very thin wire. So the smaller the wire, the thicker the smaller the number, the thicker the wire. The larger the number, the thinner the wire. Completely counterintuitive. I did not come up with this system. I'm just explaining it. So we are going to use 18 gauge wire for our next step. And here I recommend cutting and straightening about a 20-inch piece. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab my measuring device and I'm going to pull out. And again, you can see my wire fell out of the hole, and I like to keep it in there. So I can show you how I do that. I just thread that right through that hole and kind of lock that back into place, pull it out. And once again, I will take my nylon jaw pliers and just pull them against that 18 gauge wire to straighten it out. And especially when we are making a bracelet, which is what we're doing right now, the work hardening of the wire, it becomes important because you want your wire to be easy enough that you can work with it, especially when you are learning a new technique, but you also want to make sure that it is hard enough that it will keep its shape nicely as a bracelet. So I said 20 inches, so 12 plus 8 is 20. So let me measure that one more time. 12 plus 8, and let's just go, we're just going to do a couple more inches for good luck, because if you have been in my other classes, you have heard me say things like, it's always good to have a little bit more wire, no matter what you're making. The materials are generally and relatively inexpensive enough that it costs a lot less to add a little bit more on either end than it does to have to redo your whole project. Okay, so once again, and total, just a good habit to get into, you always straighten your wire before you work with it. So now if you have the instructions or you are following along, we are on to step 8. We are coming down the home stretch. And this is one of my absolute favorite ways to finish off a design. We are now going to be making this hook and eye clasp. So we're going to fashion this hook first. We're going to add some beads, add our beaded or our wire coil, some more beads, and then we are going to finish with a wrapped loop. So they're actually, for a very simple project, we're learning some skills today. So let's go ahead and make that clasp. And I hope that you will be as impressed by how easy this is as I would like you to be. All right, so let me get a nice clean workstation here, get all of my stuff out of the way. And I'm going to make the hook, right? I said I was going to make the hook, and I'm going to measure about 2 inches. 2 inches is probably more. Ooh, I'm so sorry. Probably more than I need, but I'm going to measure out those 2 inches. I'm just holding in my thumb where that measurement is. And I'm taking my chain nose pliers and I'm bending. Let's move this back so we have a little bit of a clearer shot. I'm bending that wire over onto itself, okay? So you could do that part with your fingers, but I always think using a tool to do it makes it a lot easier. This is where I like to also use my fingers though, because they are my best tool, right? I'm just taking those 2 wires and I am pressing them against each other, and see how they're coming together. And whenever you're working with wire, you always want to make small movements. You don't want to use big movements. You don't want to smush things together really quickly. The smaller the movements that you make, the more success you will have with your wire work. So I'm just coming down here and I'm using the jaws of my chain nose pliers. You could use flat nose pliers. You could not use round nose pliers for this part though, because you will mar your wire all up. Finn, what are you eating? Finn seems to have found something on the floor of my studio that he's nibbling on. So let's see. I really want to get this as close together as I can without making it, without getting it out of shape. So I think that that is pretty good. So I use my chain nose pliers and I am just making those 2 pieces of wire folded over as close as I possibly can. So now what I'm going to do is take my round nose pliers, and I'm just going to make a slight bend up. Okay, so I grabbed the end of that, those 2 pieces of wire that were folded together, and I just gently bent them up. So I have just kind of a little, I don't know, maybe a 45-degree angle there on the top. And that's really just decorative. So now what I'm going to do is with the jaw, or I'm sorry, with that little bend facing up, I'm going to hold the wire in the biggest part of my round nose pliers. Now, if you're using round nose pliers that have a really thick jaw, you might not want to go all the way back to the end. It really depends on the diameter of the jaws of your round nose pliers. There are some round nose pliers that have larger jaws than others. These just happen to kind of calibrate for me that I want to put them all the way back in the jaw. And so I have my little bendy part pointing toward me. And now I'm going to rotate my wrist away from me. Okay. So away from me, I'm going down like this to make that loop. And so if you're not able to kind of keep up with me on this section, just a reminder for everyone that this video will be posted. And so if you're watching after the fact on the Michael's YouTube channel, you can go back and forth and pause and rewind and watch over and over and over again. Okay, so next step, there are 2 wires here, right? There's a short wire that you can see the end of, and then a long wire. So we don't want to worry so much about the long wire. But what we're going to do with that short wire is, once again, with our chain nose pliers, we are going to bend this short wire so that it is facing this way and crossing this long wire, okay? Again, this is an example of when you break it down into a million different steps, it sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is. So all I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna turn on my extra light here. Hopefully that will be good for you guys as well. And I'm gonna grab that wire just about, I don't know, maybe 2 millimeters down from where I made that little hook bend. And I'm going to, let's see if I can, I'm trying to do it so that you guys can see, but I actually have to do it so that I can do it. So let me come in here. And what I'm doing is I'm going to bend this so that it is crossing that other wire. Okay, once again, this is like, it's such an easy thing, but when you break it down into a million steps, it sounds a little bit more complicated than it is. Okay, and so now what I'm gonna do is, let me bring this back over so you guys can see. I'm gonna hold this with my chain nose pliers, and you can do this part with your finger or with another pliers. Sometimes I start with my fingers and end with pliers, but I'm going to wrap this around that wire. Okay, so see how I started it with my fingers, and now I'm going to grab another chain nose plier and pull it around. And now see how I'm doing small incremental movements? I'm not really wrapping it. I'm more so doing a pull and a push to get that wrapped loop the way I want it to be. Okay, so a pull and a push, and I happen to have kind of the perfect amount of wire. If you have a lot of wire, you can make this a really long coil. If you have just a little bit of wire there, you can probably get away with just wrapping this once. As long as it's wrapped once, everything else is decorative. And you can see here too, I'm trying to get that nice and in focus for everybody, but there's just the littlest gap here. I don't want that littlest gap yet there. So I am just going to smush it together with my chain nose pliers, and bye-bye gap. Okay, so I've got a little bit on the end here as well. So I'm going to come in with my flush cutters and snip that off. And you can see, force of habit, I'm putting my finger over that cut. You can't see it when I have my finger over that cut, but you always want to protect yourself and the people around you when you are cutting something. I can't tell you how many classes I have given that warning or that admonishment or that advice, and little pieces of wire still go flying all over the place. Just good habits to get into to protect you, your neighbor, your furry friend, your kids, anybody who's around. Okay, so now I have the hook on the end and I have my wire. Now this is way more wire than I need, but again, better to have more wire than less. So now what I need to do is a little bit of math, right? I didn't say there wouldn't be math here on this Facebook Live or this Michael's class. So my coil here, let's see, my coil is 2.5 inches roughly. And I want my bracelet to be, for me, 6 3/4 inches. Okay, you might want your bracelet to be 8 inches. You might want your bracelet to be small, larger or smaller, whatever it is. What you need to do is figure out what you want your bracelet to be. So for me, let's just go with an easy measurement. I'm going to make mine 6.5 inches. So if I have 2.5 inches, then I have 4 inches left to work with, which means, accounting for my clasp, which is 1 inch, I actually have 3 inches to work with. And once again, Yvette has posted this jewelry math in the comment section, but not only is it in the written instructions, but you can go back and watch over and over again as I muddle through how I figure this out. So we started with 6.5 inches. We subtracted to 4 inches. We subtracted to 3 inches because my clasp also takes up 1 inch. So now I have 3 inches of beads on either side. So we divide that by 2, 1.5 inches. So we're going to go ahead and string up 1.5 inches of beads. And I am not a math teacher. I'm going to be a math teacher come Monday for my 5th grader, but today I am not a math teacher. But 1.5 inches is the number of inches of beads that you want to string up. And with these 6mm beads, that's roughly 2, 4, 6, let's say 7 beads on either side. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and on the other end from where my hook is, I'm just going to go and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I am ready to put my coil on. This is always my favorite part because you've gone to all of the effort to do that awesome coil, and now it's time to string it on. So I'm going to come through those 5 coils there, through the coil, and then through the 5 coils on the other side. And then I'm going to go ahead and do 1, 2, or I should say 2, 4, 6, 7 beads on the other side. And one thing about beads and bead hole sizes, not all beads that you might want to use for your bracelet will have holes that are big enough to fit over this 18 gauge wire. You can see that these holes are pretty big. Most beads will fit, but just know that your different beads have different size holes. So for example, if you have Czech glass beads like the ones that I'm using here, they are manufactured in Czechoslovakia, which is why they're called Czech beads. If you were using seed beads, which also can be found in Czechoslovakia, but are more of kind of a round, smaller sized hole bead, you would just kind of have to experiment to see, which beads you liked and which beads worked. Okay, so let's see. I have everything all strung up now, and we are ready to go on to step 10 now. Wow, we are rocking and rolling, folks. I'm curious to know how many people are able to make along with me. And you can see with those 20 inches, I have way more wire than I need, but it's going to make my job a lot easier. Next step. I feel like this is fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to use my fingers. If you have a bracelet mandrel or a cup or a coffee mug or really any round object that is approximately 7 inches in diameter will be really good for this step. But I really just use my fingers, and you can see I haven't done this loop part yet. Before I do that, I'm going to use my fingers to shape this into an oval / bracelet shape. And you can see I'm doing this so that my hook is facing toward the inside of the bracelet. So when all is said and done, my hook will be on the inside of the bracelet, because that makes it much easier to put on and to take off when you have it on your wrist than if your hook is on the outside. That I've learned from years of doing it wrong. Okay, so we are going to just kind of mold this into a size. And this is where you can be like, that looks a little small. Maybe I didn't do my math right, or maybe I actually want this to be a little bit bigger. So you can add beads or subtract beads as you would like. This is where you will do that step. But once you have everything to your liking, you can go ahead and do, oh my gosh, the last step. So I told everybody we were going to be learning some skills here in our class today. And is this our last skill? We always get a little sad when the end of class starts happening, but what we are going to be doing is on this end here, we're going to make a wrapped loop. Okay, so for those of you who have never done a wrapped loop before, I'm going to take you through step by step. There are a gazillion resources online to help you through the navigating of making a wrapped loop, including on the Michaels website and also on beadalon.com. So what I'm going to do for my first step of my wrapped loop is I'm going to come here and I'm going to leave about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch, a couple of millimeters between the beads and my pliers, and I'm going to bend down at a 45-degree angle. Let's make sure I get a nice 45-degree angle here. Okay, so that was done with the chain nose pliers. Next, I'm going to switch to my round nose pliers, because when you're making loops, when you're making things that are round, you want to use your round nose pliers. It won't work if you're using a different kind of pliers. You always want to do your round nose pliers. So I have my wire now. Let's see, I want to get a really nice view here. So I have my wire held in between the jaws of my round nose pliers. And what I'm going to do is with my, and I'm about, I don't know, about halfway up. If you come all the way down here, you're going to have a really teeny tiny loop. If you come all the way up here, you're going to have a great big loop. So I usually, for something like this, go about halfway up. But again, that's judging on the diameter of these particular pliers. So now what I'm going to do is with my index finger, my most important tool, I'm going to wrap the wire up and over the top of those pliers. Does everybody see that? So it ends up being kind of a question mark kind of a thing, or maybe like kind of looks like a rabbit head to me right now, an antelope. Okay, so, oops. I came up and around the top. And so now what I want to do is I need to reposition my pliers so that I have the ability to cross that into a full loop. So again, with wire work, when you break it down to all the different steps, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. But once you do it, it's really, really easy. The thing about the wrap loops is practice. Okay, so now I have my loop around the top of my pliers, and I'm going to reposition it so that loop is now on the bottom jaw of my pliers. So you see what I did? I moved from the top to the bottom. And once again, I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to wrap that so it crosses that loop at a 90-degree angle. So all of that I just did with my fingers, okay? And I'm going to actually switch my grip to my other hand, because now what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to snip off this great big end that I have here because I don't need it anymore. So now I have my pliers in my other hand, and once again, I can either use my fingers to do this part or a tool. Regardless of which way you do it, you're using small incremental movements. So I'm going to use my thumb and I'm going to push down here. And again, this is still a little long for me. So I'm going to push down and I'm going to pull this around so that that wire crosses at a 90-degree angle. And I'm going to do that again, right? Small incremental movements to wrap that wire around. Okay, so I have 2 wraps now. I have my nice loop, and now I still have this end here, but it is so much easier to do a wrapped loop when you have a nice long tail than to be frustrated by not having a good loop. And again, I held my tail here and I snipped it with the flush side of my cutters. And now the last step, and this is kind of what differentiates your jewelry from novice to pro, is I'm going to come down here and with my chain nose pliers, I'm just going to tuck that little end in as much as I can. Okay, and so now, well, that's a little wonky, right? From all of that wire work, it kind of got a little bit bent out of shape. So now I'm just going to come here with my fingers, and you can see I made mine pretty small. So if you have a bigger wrist or a bigger person, you would definitely want to put more beads here on the end. On the sample I had here, you can see it's much bigger than the one that we made today. But that is all there is to it. So we have made our coil. We added our beads. We did a hook clasp here and a wrapped loop on the end to make our coil wire bead bracelet. Once again, you can see all of the instructions for everything on michaels.com. And Amanda, you can go ahead and take the front facing camera now. Awesome. Gosh, that was a lot, right? We learned a lot of things today, but I think that the skills, if you do go back and watch over and over again, there is a lot to learn. So this one, I'm just going to measure it out. This is about a 7-inch bracelet, but it feels really small. I'm going to put it on my small wrist. I think I would add maybe 2 beads on either side. So instead of using 7 beads on either side, I would use 8 beads. But you can see, did you take the down camera again? I can't tell where we're coming. Okay. You can see it does fit my wrist. It's just a little small for this kind of bracelet. So I think I would, for me, probably do 7 inches instead of the 6.5, which is what I usually like to do for a smaller bracelet. But this is great. Thank you everybody so very much for joining me. Hopefully some of you were able to follow along. If you weren't able to follow along, that is totally fine. The Michaels classes, I think, are up in perpetuity. So go ahead and check out where you went to sign up for this class. There are a couple of different places to click through and you can see all of the classes that I have done and that other amazing makers have done as well. So for Beadalon, I very much appreciate you joining me for the coiled wire bead bracelet. Be sure to go and sign up for my next class. We'll be making a mask necklace. So again, down to the basics, but a really practical, practical accessory for these crazy, crazy times that we live in. So be safe, be well. Thank you as always to Michaels for allowing me and for Beadalon to participate in these amazing learning experiences. And until next time, happy beading.